Most people think a bad car is just bad luck. Mechanics know better. They see patterns. The same brands, the same failures, the same mileage windows where everything starts to go wrong over and over. And somehow, buyers keep walking into the same traps. Because marketing is loud, because showrooms look clean, and because the real cost hides until years later. This isn't about one broken car. It's about brands that come back again and again for all the wrong reasons. Repairs that repeat. Problems that don't stay fixed, bills that keep growing. Today, we're breaking down the mechanic's blacklist, the 7 car brands you should think twice about owning. And the last one surprises almost everyone. Let's start with Chevrolet. A brand can dominate job sites and still disappoint in the quiet corners of suburbia. Chevrolet, operating under General Motors, remains one of the most recognizable American badges ever stamped onto steel. The Silverado pickup continues to earn respect for durability under load, long-haul mileage, and real-world abuse tolerance. But the mechanic's hesitation does not begin in the truck bay. It begins in the compact crossover aisle. Throughout the mid-2010s, Chevrolet expanded aggressively into smaller turbocharged engines designed to meet tightening fuel economy standards. On paper, the formula looked smart. Lighter blocks, direct fuel injection, smaller displacement paired with forced induction. In practice, several of these platforms began surfacing in repair discussions, with a repeating pattern-elevated oil consumption, premature timing chain wear, and turbocharger stress once mileage crossed 80,000 to 120,000. The issue is not universal across every vehicle wearing the bow tie. That distinction matters. The concern concentrates in specific compact and crossover builds produced between 2014 and 2022. In independent shop surveys and warranty extension bulletins issued during that window, technicians repeatedly noted customers arriving unaware that oil levels had fallen dangerously low between service intervals. By the time dashboard alerts triggered, internal wear had already begun. Rodnock does not negotiate, it announces. The engineering logic behind these failures is not mysterious. Low-tension piston rings reduce friction and improve efficiency, but they can also allow oil to pass more freely under sustained heat and boost pressure. Direct injection systems, while precise, introduce carbon buildup risks along intake valves over extended cycles. Turbochargers operate at extreme rotational speeds, often exceeding 100,000 revolutions per minute. Combine tight tolerances, higher combustion pressures, and inconsistent maintenance habits, and the mechanical margin narrows. What makes this entry unsettling is contrast. Chevrolet's full-size truck architecture, particularly traditional, naturally aspirated engines, maintains a far stronger long-term reputation. That internal divide suggests not incompetence, but strategic compromise. When efficiency targets rise and cost ceilings remain fixed, something absorbs the pressure. Often, it is longevity. Financially, the exposure is measurable. Engine replacements on affected compact models can exceed $6,000 to $8,000 once out of warranty. Turbocharger assemblies, including labor, frequently cross the $2,000 mark. For vehicles originally purchased in the low $20,000 range, that repair ratio alters the ownership equation dramatically. This does not make Chevrolet a brand to avoid entirely. It makes it a brand to approach selectively. The trucks still hold ground. The smaller boosted platforms demand vigilance, documented maintenance history, and realistic expectations about long-term durability beyond 100,000 miles. For long-term ownership, patterns matter more than marketing. When similar complaints surface across regions, climates, and driving styles, technicians pay attention. The goal is not outrage, it is risk awareness, grounded in repeat mechanical exposure over extended ownership cycles. Transmission experimentation rewrote reliability math in ways engine downsizing never did. Ford. Innovation can be admirable until it leaves owners stranded at a red light. Ford, formerly known as Ford Motor Company, built its legacy on assembly lines, work trucks, and the cultural dominance of the F-Series pickup. For decades, that foundation represented mechanical predictability. But during the early to mid-2010s, a gamble on transmission technology reshaped the brand's reliability conversation. Between 2011 and 2016, Ford deployed a dry, dual-clutch, automatic transmission across several compact platforms. The engineering theory promised faster shifts, improved fuel efficiency, and a sportier driving feel. In controlled conditions, the design made sense. In real-world American traffic-heavy stop-and-go congestion, humid summers, steep parking ramps, the system revealed its limits. Shuddering acceleration, delayed engagement, and premature clutch wear became common service complaints. Technicians inside independent repair shops began noticing a pattern before headlines amplified it. Vehicles with fewer than 60,000 miles arrived exhibiting harsh vibration during low-speed maneuvers. Some required repeated software recalibrations. Others progressed to full clutch pack replacements. Warranty extensions were issued. Lawsuits followed. But even after updates, long-term owner confidence did not fully recover. The mechanical explanation is straightforward. A dry dual-clutch transmission relies on friction surfaces operating without the cooling cushion of transmission fluid. In theory, this reduces parasitic loss and boosts efficiency. In practice, under constant low-speed modulation, heat accumulates. Heat degrades friction material. Degradation produces shudder. Shudder accelerates wear. The feedback loop compounds quickly once tolerances tighten. Financial exposure varies by mileage, but replacement costs commonly range between $2,500 and $4,000 once outside warranty coverage. For compact cars purchased in the mid-teens price range, that repair ratio carries weight. More importantly, the inconvenience of repeated dealership visits erodes trust long before catastrophic failure occurs. It is critical to separate platforms here. Ford's full-size trucks, particularly naturally aspirated engines paired with traditional torque converter automatics, retain a far stronger durability profile. The problem cluster centers on smaller passenger vehicles produced during that experimental window, when innovation intersects with aggressive cost targets and compressed development timelines. Real-world stress testing sometimes lags behind ambition. There is also a broader lesson embedded in this chapter. Automotive evolution often moves faster than long-term reliability data can accumulate. Early adopters bear the statistical risk. By the time patterns surface publicly, thousands of owners have already absorbed the consequences. Transmission innovation always sounds impressive during launch events, yet durability is proven only through mileage and heat. When recalibrations outnumber redesigns, confidence erodes. Mechanics notice frequency, not advertising. Repetition of clutch replacements becomes a data point that cannot be ignored. Ford remains a cornerstone of American manufacturing. But during those years, refinement trailed rollout. Mechanics remember that lag. Luxury ambition multiplies complexity, and complexity rarely ages gracefully. If this breakdown is already shifting how you view these brands, take a second to like the video, subscribe for deeper investigations, and share your long-term ownership experience below. Cadillac. Prestige is intoxicating until the dashboard lights begin to flicker. Cadillac, the flagship luxury division of General Motors, has spent the past 2 decades reinventing itself as a performance and technology contender. Sharp body lines replaced soft curves. Turbocharged engines replaced large displacement complacency. Massive infotainment screens and adaptive suspensions promised a future-forward driving experience. On a showroom floor, the transformation is convincing. In long-term ownership, the story becomes more complicated. From the early 2010s through the early 2020s, Cadillac accelerated its integration of advanced electronic architecture. Magnetic ride control suspensions, multi-layered digital instrument clusters, advanced driver assistance systems, and tightly packaged turbocharged engines created an environment dense with sensors and modules. Each innovation improved comfort or performance. Each addition also increased diagnostic complexity and long-term repair exposure. Independent repair data during this period reveals recurring patterns. Electronic suspension components often require replacement after 80,000 to 100,000 miles, with individual magnetic struts frequently costing over $1,000 per corner before labor. Infotainment systems, while visually stunning, have generated persistent complaints about screen delamination, software freezes, and module communication faults. When control modules fail, labor time escalates because multiple systems must be recalibrated. The engine side carries its own pressure points. Turbocharged 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder platforms operate at higher combustion temperatures and boost levels than their naturally aspirated predecessors. Higher cylinder pressures improve performance and efficiency, but they also compress mechanical tolerances. When oil change intervals stretch beyond recommended limits, timing chain wear and turbocharger stress accumulate quietly. By the time symptoms surface, internal components have already absorbed the damage. None of this suggests that every Cadillac will fail prematurely. The nuance matters. Many owners report smooth operation for years. The concern lies in statistical exposure. Luxury vehicles typically depreciate rapidly after the first ownership cycle. When advanced components begin aging beyond warranty, the cost curve steepens dramatically. Suspension repairs can exceed $3,000 to $5,000. Electronic module replacements frequently cross the $2,000 threshold once programming is included. For vehicles originally priced above $50,000, the expectation of durability feels mismatched against those realities. The deeper pattern is philosophical. Cadillac pursued technological parity with European luxury competitors, but compressed development cycles and shared mass market components sometimes narrowed durability margins. Innovation became a branding imperative. Long-term service simplicity did not always receive equal weight. Emotionally, this entry stings because Cadillac represents aspiration within American manufacturing. The name carries heritage. The crest signals arrival. Yet, mechanics often caution that ownership beyond warranty demands financial discipline and realistic expectations about electronic longevity. Luxury buyers expect refinement without consequence, but complexity multiplies hidden costs. Advanced suspension systems, layered software, and turbocharged engines operate near tighter tolerances. Once warranties expire, each additional feature represents another potential failure point, accumulating quietly beneath the polished exterior. Luxury, when layered over complexity, magnifies both reward and risk. Rugged image doesn't guarantee consistent engineering beneath the surface. Jeep. Few emblems carry as much emotional gravity as a 7-slot grille cresting a rocky trail at sunrise. Jeep, operating in the United States market under the Stellantis corporate umbrella, built its reputation on durability, forged in wartime necessity, and refined through decades of off-road culture. The brand does not merely sell transportation, it sells identity. That is precisely why its modern reliability fluctuations generate such intense reaction inside repair bays. During the mid-2010s and into the early 2020s, Jeep expanded aggressively across compact and mid-size sport utility vehicle segments. Models introduced between 2014 and 2022 featured increasingly sophisticated drivetrains, electronically managed 4-wheel drive systems, and 9-speed automatic transmissions designed to balance highway efficiency with trail capability. On paper, the combination looked ideal. In practice, service departments began logging recurring complaints about harsh shifting, hesitation during low-speed maneuvers, and intermittent electronic module faults. The mechanical root often centers on transmission calibration complexity. A 9-speed gearbox contains tightly spaced ratios intended to optimize fuel economy and torque distribution. However, frequent gear hunting during urban driving creates noticeable shift shock. Software updates have addressed some drivability concerns, yet technicians report that long-term refinement still varies by production batch and maintenance history. When adaptive learning systems struggle to reconcile driver input with shifting logic, the experience becomes inconsistent. Electrical architecture adds another layer. Modern Jeep platforms integrate terrain management systems, electronic locking differentials, advanced infotainment displays, and multiple driver assistance sensors. Each component increases capability. Each also multiplies diagnostic pathways when warning lights illuminate unexpectedly. Module replacements can exceed $1,500 to $3,000, depending on configuration and labor time required for recalibration. Importantly, Jeep's body-on-frame heritage models, particularly those maintaining simpler mechanical layouts, tend to hold stronger reputations for structural durability. The vulnerability cluster appears more concentrated in crossover-oriented platforms engineered for broader suburban appeal. That distinction matters. The badge spans a wide spectrum of engineering philosophies. Financially, ownership risk becomes visible beyond 80,000 to 120,000 miles. Transmission rebuild estimates frequently range from $4,000 to $6,000 once out of warranty. Electronic drivetrain repairs add incremental cost that compounds over time. For vehicles originally marketed as rugged and adventure-ready, the expectation gap feels personal when reliability wavers. The deeper tension lies between legacy and evolution. Jeep's historical narrative celebrates mechanical simplicity and field repair resilience. Modern regulatory demands and consumer comfort expectations necessitate complex integration. When complexity outpaces durability margin, brand mythology collides with statistical reality. Emotion amplifies scrutiny here because loyalty runs deep. Owners often forgive minor faults. Repeated drivability concerns, however, test that loyalty. Capability remains impressive, consistency remains uneven. Capability on rugged terrain does not always translate to consistency in commuter traffic. As software layers stack upon mechanical systems, minor calibration faults ripple outward. Over time, those ripples become patterns. Technicians track carefully across model years and mileage brackets. Raw performance shifts the risk equation from software glitches to mechanical strain. Dodge. Power has a sound, and Dodge made sure you could hear it from 3 blocks away. Under the Stellantis North America umbrella, Dodge rebuilt its modern identity around unapologetic performance. Supercharged 8-cylinder engines, wide body muscle sedans, aggressive styling. This was not subtle engineering, it was deliberate excess. And excess, while intoxicating, always carries a mechanical price. From the early 2010s through the early 2020s, Dodge leaned heavily into high-output platforms. Horsepower figures climbed past 400, 500, even 700 in specialty trims. Marketing celebrated quarter-mile times. Dealership showrooms amplified the theater. What received less spotlight was the long-term stress placed on drivetrain components when that power met daily driving habits. Independent repair trends show that heavily driven Dodge performance models begin surfacing with differential wear, transmission strain, and cooling system fatigue once mileage crosses 60,000 to 100,000. The engines themselves, particularly naturally aspirated 8-cylinder platforms, are not inherently fragile. In fact, when maintained properly, many demonstrate strong internal durability. The vulnerability emerges in surrounding components tasked with channeling that torque. Rear differentials absorb enormous rotational force during rapid acceleration. Repeated launch control usage accelerates gear wear. Automatic transmissions, tuned for aggressive shifts, operate under elevated thermal loads. Heat is the quiet multiplier. Under sustained high-temperature cycles, fluid degradation accelerates. When service intervals stretch, internal friction compounds quickly. Cooling systems deserve separate attention. High-displacement engines generate substantial thermal output, especially in performance-oriented trims introduced between 2015 and 2023. Radiators, water pumps, and auxiliary coolers operate near their design ceiling during spirited driving. Minor coolant leaks, if ignored, escalate into overheating events that warp components and damage gaskets. Repair invoices can exceed $4,000 to $8,000 depending on scope. The financial exposure does not stem from a single catastrophic flaw. It arises from cumulative wear. Brake systems on performance models require more frequent replacement due to heavier curb weight and aggressive stopping capability. High-performance tires wear rapidly. Insurance premiums often rise. Ownership costs expand beyond initial purchase price. Emotionally, Dodge occupies a unique space in American culture. It represents defiance, nostalgia, and raw mechanical presence. That emotional appeal often encourages buyers to overlook long-term maintenance discipline. Yet these vehicles demand respect. They are engineered to deliver thrill, not frugality. The brand's mechanical story is not one of hidden defects. It is one of amplified stress margins. When torque output climbs, every supporting component must absorb greater load. Maintenance becomes non-negotiable. Abuse accelerates consequence. For drivers seeking measured longevity over theatrical acceleration, Dodge's performance focus may not align with priorities. Capability is undeniable. Durability depends heavily on restraint. High-output platforms magnify every maintenance decision an owner makes because elevated power levels amplify the consequences of even minor neglect. Aggressive driving habits, delayed fluid changes, inconsistent cooling system inspections, and poorly matched aftermarket modifications accelerate component fatigue far faster than most drivers expect. When engineering stress margins narrow under sustained torque and heat, small oversights no longer remain small. They stack, compound, and surface as premature wear across transmissions, differentials, and supporting systems. What begins as thrilling acceleration gradually transforms into recurring mechanical expense over extended mileage cycles that test long-term durability. Power fades with restraint, stagnation fades with time, and time exposes everything. If you value breakdowns rooted in repair patterns instead of brand loyalty, subscribe now. The remaining entries expose the most consistent long-term reliability risks. And the final brand sits at the top of nearly every mechanic's quiet warning list: Chrysler. Sometimes decline is not dramatic. It is quiet, gradual, almost administrative. Chrysler, once a defining pillar of American automotive ambition, now operates with a dramatically reduced lineup under the Stellantis corporate structure. There was a time when the brand produced full-size sedans, convertibles, and family vehicles that shaped suburban driveways. Today, its presence feels narrower, and that contraction carries mechanical implications. From the early 2010s through the early 2020s, Chrysler relied heavily on aging platform architecture. Vehicles introduced in earlier product cycles continued with incremental updates rather than complete structural redesigns. On the surface, this strategy reduced development costs. Beneath the sheet metal, however, it meant that core mechanical systems aged without fundamental modernization. Transmission reliability discussions have frequently centered on automatic gearboxes paired with mid-size sedan and minivan platforms produced between 2012 and 2020. While not universally defective, technicians report recurring complaints of delayed engagement, rough shifting under load, and fluid contamination issues when maintenance intervals extend beyond recommended limits. As mileage approaches 100,000 to 120,000, wear becomes more noticeable, particularly in units lacking comprehensive service records. Interior durability presents another pressure point. Material fatigue in seating mechanisms, electrical door actuators, and infotainment components has surfaced repeatedly in long-term ownership threads. Individually, these issues may appear minor. Collectively, they contribute to an ownership experience that feels less robust than competitors operating on newer architectures. The mechanical challenge here is not aggressive innovation, it is stagnation. When platform redesign cycles stretch, engineering tolerances designed for an earlier regulatory and consumer environment must absorb new demands. Weight increases from added safety equipment. Software updates strain older electrical networks. Cooling systems designed for prior output levels manage incremental performance adjustments. Over time, the margin tightens. Financial exposure typically appears beyond 80,000 miles. Transmission repairs can exceed $3,000 to $5,000 once outside warranty coverage. Electronic module replacements often add incremental expenses, ranging from several hundred to $2,000 depending on scope. For vehicles originally marketed as practical and family-oriented, those repair ratios create tension between expectation and reality. Emotionally, Chrysler's story resonates because it once symbolized reinvention and resilience within American manufacturing. The brand survived bankruptcy, restructuring, and multiple ownership transitions. Yet, survival does not guarantee engineering renewal. A reduced development pipeline often signals constrained reinvestment. This entry is not about dramatic, catastrophic flaws. It is about accumulated aging. Buyers attracted by value pricing may underestimate long-term wear patterns embedded within older platform designs. Aging platforms rarely collapse in spectacular fashion. Instead, they decline in small, compounding increments that only become obvious over time. Outdated electrical networks struggle to integrate newer software demands, and extended redesign cycles reduce the flexibility required to meet evolving safety, efficiency, and performance standards. While competitors invest in fresh architectures, stagnation quietly tightens durability margins year after year, especially under real-world driving stress that includes heat, vibration, stop-and-go traffic, and long highway mileage. The result is not dramatic failure, but gradual erosion of reliability confidence. Electronic accumulation quietly drains ownership confidence faster than any single failure ever could. Buick. The quietest problems are often the ones that empty a wallet the slowest. Buick, another division operating under General Motors, has cultivated an image of understated comfort for decades. It does not shout performance numbers. It does not chase aggressive styling theatrics. It promises smooth rides, soft cabins, and practical crossovers for daily life. That calm exterior makes its long-term reliability pattern more subtle and more persistent. During the mid-2010s through the early 2020s, Buick leaned heavily into compact and mid-size crossover platforms. These vehicles shared underlying architecture with broader corporate siblings, but positioned themselves as slightly more refined. On paper, the formula appeared safe. Moderate turbocharged engines, automatic transmissions with conservative tuning, and user-friendly infotainment systems. Nothing radical, nothing extreme. The mechanical story, however, unfolds in layers. Independent repair shops report recurring electronic module faults, appearing between 70,000 and 120,000 miles. Infotainment systems freeze or reboot unexpectedly. Proximity sensors trigger false alerts. Climate control modules occasionally fail without warning. Individually, these are not catastrophic breakdowns. Collectively, they create repeat service visits that chip away at ownership confidence. Turbocharged four-cylinder engines, introduced widely between 2014 and 2022, add another variable. While generally more restrained than high-performance platforms, they still operate under elevated combustion pressures compared to older, naturally aspirated designs. Oil dilution concerns in short-trip driving cycles and carbon buildup along intake valves have surfaced in technician discussions. Regular maintenance mitigates risk, yet many owners underestimate the discipline required for boosted engines. Financial exposure accumulates incrementally. Electronic module replacement can range from several hundred to over $2,000 depending on component complexity and reprogramming requirements. Infotainment head unit failures often cross the $1,000 mark. Turbocharger repairs, when needed outside warranty, can exceed $2,500, including labor. No single invoice necessarily devastates. The repetition does. What elevates Buick to the top of this list is not a headline-grabbing defect. It is frequency. Shop hours logged against seemingly minor electrical complaints add up. Diagnostic time increases because modern crossover platforms integrate multiple control units, communicating over shared networks. A fault in one module can cascade warnings across others, complicating troubleshooting. Emotionally, this ranking surprises many drivers who associate Buick with steady, understated dependability. Buick carries a reputation for comfort, quiet cabins, and conservative engineering choices that feel intentionally restrained. Yet, conservative branding does not guarantee long-term mechanical simplicity or reduced ownership complexity. As electronic density increases even in mid-market vehicles, the margin for durable aging narrows in subtle but measurable ways. More sensors, more interconnected modules, and more layered software mean more potential failure points over extended mileage cycles. What once felt straightforward now depends on intricate communication between systems. When that network begins to age, small glitches multiply, and the perception of calm reliability slowly gives way to recurring confidence, eroding interruptions. The lesson here is measured vigilance. Comfort does not equal low maintenance. Understated styling does not equal reduced complexity. When evaluating Buick crossovers produced in the last decade, comprehensive service documentation and extended coverage consideration become practical necessities. Frequent minor electronic faults can feel harmless when viewed in isolation. Yet repetition changes the emotional equation. When modules fail, sensors misread conditions, and infotainment screens freeze unexpectedly, the experience shifts from ownership pride to appointment scheduling. Each service visit may seem manageable, but the pattern reshapes perception over time. If this list changed how you look at certain badges, that's the point. Reliability isn't about hype. It's about patterns, mileage, and what shows up in real repair bays years later. If you've owned one of these brands, share your experience in the comments. Your story might save someone else thousands. Hit like if you want more breakdowns based on real-world ownership, not marketing promises. And subscribe if you want to stay ahead of the mistakes most buyers only learn about the expensive way.